Welcome back to Andy's Garage. Today we're doing the A65. A65. So here we are. So today we are going to change out these points for the TriSpark system. Well, we've got all the bits up here for the TriSpark system. One thing to note with the TriSpark, and you get the TriSpark coils, you need the TriSpark coils, but these coils are smaller than the original coils, so you will need to come up with a little bit of a solution to get them to fit your other. These are the original coil mounts, so you either put some foam on the inside of these to pack them out a bit so that these new coils fit snugly, because they rattle around like a dick in a sock. But what I've done is I've just got some clamps from the hardware store and just bent them a little bit and closed them up a little bit to suit. So I've still got to drill some holes in that and mount them up to the frame, but for now we're not up to that, so we'll put that aside. We'll do that later. Okay, so with the TriSpark setup, you get everything you need. Right, you get your plug, leads. Where's the leads? There's the leads. So you get new plug leads. Obviously you get your little rotor, all that sort of stuff, and that's all the parts. The other thing that you can get, I think this is an optional extra, this is the wiring harness between the points and the coils that goes through the engine case. And most of the time this part here becomes all hard and crusty and just freaking crumbles in your hand. So even if you just want to buy this part and you want to keep the points, you can just buy this little piece of loom and replace it. So that is rather good. So we're going to be doing that because ours is rusty and crusty, as you will see. So down here, this is the wire I'm talking about. I'll get this out of the way. Sit up there. Yeah, so this one here that comes out for the coil it's not too bad inside the case, but coming through the case and it gets all brittle. The wires break, and that a lot of the time can be a problem while your point system fails, just because those wires are broken and they're touching each other, or they're bloody earthing out, or whatever they're doing. But for today, this is going. So let's get on to it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull these wires through. We'll undo these. We'll probably have to cut them off actually, because I don't know if they're going to fit through there. We'll just cut it. There we go. So we've just cut the end off. We might end up just reusing the factory fittings if we want it to have a factory look, but probably not. So to remove the plate, you've got a Phillips head screw here and a Phillips head screw here. It's pretty simple. Pull the screw right out. Okay, so that's the points removed. So this part here is your automatic advance mechanism. So as the engine revs up, the weights get thrown out and it goes into full advance mode. Obviously when it's closed, it's in full retard mode, and as the engine revs up, it flings it out and advances it. So we need to remove all this mechanism as well. So by doing that, we need to remove this bolt here and then get this off. I'll show you how to do it. So 7/16 AF will do the job here. It's just a normal thread, it's not a left-hand thread or anything. You'll see. This part here is a little bit stubborn, and you might have to put a puller around the back of that to get it off. So it looks like that's what we're going to have to do. This shaft is tapered. Most of the time you do not need a puller though. Give it a little tap and it just popped out. See how it's a cone shape? It sits in the bush inside there. So that's it. That's the removal of the points ignition system. Quite simple. So the next step when we put the electronic ignition in is to get it timed as we're putting it in, which is ideal because we don't want to mess around with it later, putting it in, putting it out. Okay, so with our points plate removed, our advance unit removed, we can go on to installing the TriSpark ignition system. Now to do that too, we need to find top dead center, or I think these things are like 34 degrees. But anyway, that's beside the point, because on an A65, see if I can get this in here. See that slot? That slot is in the crank, so that's perfectly aligned with both valves closed, and that is your timing right there. Okay, so getting on to this back here. Okay, now that we've removed the points and the advance unit, the following bit is quite simple really. It's not too hard. So what you've got to do is find the timing position on the crank on the A65. And that is a slot in the crank. So there is a little bolt here you pull out, and you can see that slot in the crank when you've turned the engine over, so it's approximately 35 degrees before top dead center. Both your valves should be closed on the right hand side, and just before top dead center you will find that mark. So line that up into the middle of the hole, and that should get us pretty much bang on. So this TriSpark unit that we're using will do Triumphs, Nortons, BSAs, etc. In this case, on the A65, it's an anti-clockwise rotation here. So we need to just be aware of that. Pretty self-explanatory reading the TriSpark instructions. Okay, it's very simple instructions to follow along. We line this up. This is our stator plate, right? And we sort of get it so we've got a bit of adjustment both ways on the slot. And we put a mark on the engine case at the AC mark line on the stator plate. So you can see that black line there. Okay, that's the first step. Remove this, then it's time to install the magnet. So you want your magnet thereabouts in line with that mark. It doesn't matter if you're a little bit out, because we can adjust that with the plate. So we put that on there, and now what we're going to do is secure it with the fixing bolt that is supplied. So this next step is crucial. Okay, so we've got our magnet plate in, we've got it facing in the direction of the black mark that we've marked on the case. The securing bolts, Allen keys, Allen bolts that they supply you in the kit, there is two. You most likely will have to cut them down so that they secure this plate properly. You can see I've wound that right up. I've still got a fair bit of play there. So work out how much you need to cut off this Allen bolt. Work out where you got to cut it. I'm not saying that's where to cut it, I'm just saying you work out what's best going to suit your engine and cut a piece off it and then reinsert it so that it holds out properly. Do not just put this in there and do it up and thinking that it's going to hold it, because that will be too long in most cases. So as you can see, we are lined up with my little black mark. I have cut the bolt down and done it up. So now our magnet plate is fixed. The next step is to take your little straight edge that is supplied in the kit, put it across on its face where your stator plate is going to bolt up to. See? And you must have at least a 2mm gap between, let's see if we can get it in there, between the magnet and the stator plate. So we are good to go. That is going to move freely behind the stator. The next step is to install the stator plate. So you use your existing bolts that were holding the coil plate down, or screws. These ones didn't have the washers on them, so I robbed them off the old coils, but you use the original ones. Now, see the AC mark there? That lines up with our black mark that we marked earlier. Okay. You don't do these up tight, because at the moment we're just getting it in there, alright? So it's just got to be loosey. So we're roughly around around the AC mark, and we have plenty of adjustment either way. That's all we're looking for. That is as far as we need to get right at the minute, and then we will go about connecting the wires to the coils and to the ignition, which is very straightforward. And it's all in the instructions. If you get a little bit lost, if you're watching this and you're trying to do it and you're getting a little bit lost, just read the instructions as you're watching it and it'll all make sense. It's quite easy. So for those of you that are replacing the little mini loom that goes from the ignition module to the coils, with the supplied mini loom from TriSpark, this is when you put it in. Right. So we feed it through. And of course, it doesn't want to fit through. We might just have to shrink it a little bit. Okay, so we just feed this loom through. And we'll get through all the way. So yes, it's on one side, not on the side. Okay, so now we need to put some connectors onto here to join up with here. So once again, very simple procedure. Just strip a bit of your wire. And then we'll fit the little plugs on the end. There's our little joiner, and we'll get this. Same with the next one. Firmly on there. Okay. So we're connecting in. Black with a yellow tracer. Black with a yellow tracer. Connect them together. Black with white. Black with white. You see that? This one's black and white. Wait, that one's black and white. They go together. It's quite simple. Here we go. Okay, so that is it, and we'll just pull through the excess. This goes to earth. We are a positive earth system, so this one will go to earth. So what we do is we take out one of the pillar bolts, we'll put it to earth. And still, don't tighten up all the way yet because we haven't adjusted, we haven't done the final adjustment on the timing. So that's wired in, pretty much. And if you were using your existing loom or your existing piece of loom that came through the crankcase, this is all you have to do. You would just cut off the end of the connectors, put these connectors on and push them together. So we don't want too much floating about and rubbing, but that's okay. That's not going to affect us anyway. Although crudely, I've got the coils mounted in there. I'll have to sort out something with my bracket because it's pretty shit. But for the purpose of the exercise, you'll see what's got to go on. So now we've got to make a link cable. Because these are 6-volt coils, we're going to join the positive to the negative on these pillars here. So we will make a link wire. We have made up our connecting wire. So as spoken about before, these coils are 6-volt. So you need to connect the positive side to the negative side of the other one. Okay, so we've made up our wire. Excuse my hands in the way, but all we're doing is clipping the wire on to the terminal post, so you're not missing much. Okay, so there you go. We're going from the positive side here to the negative side there. We're almost done. Next, we make up a wire to go to the earth. So all we're doing is putting a connector on this end to connect to the coil, and then on the other end we will put a connector to connect to earth, so to the frame somewhere. So pick a good earthing spot on the frame, make sure you've cleared any paint or powder coat off so you've got a good connection, and then just put the appropriate connector there. You might have to get a larger connector. So now we have made up our lead that goes from the positive side of the other coil. As you can see there, the red wire, that's going to the frame. Remember, this is the positive earth system. So the positive goes to the frame. Now, all we've got left are the 2 wires coming from the stator unit here. So we've got these 2 wires left. Now I've shortened these up and already exposed the ends. The feed coming from the ignition switch, is that white wire there with the 2 white wires on it. So we need to connect back into that, which will give us power. And our negative side goes on the black and white. We've got a black with a yellow and a black with a white. Black with the white goes on the negative side of the coil. Black with the yellow goes to the existing power supply from the ignition. So in this case, it's the white wires. This is factory BSA wiring loom. The negative side of this coil, the positive side of this coil and the negative side of the other coil are joined together. That'll create 12 volts. The positive on the other side there, that red wire, is going to the frame. Positive earth system. I'm getting confused now. Positive earth system, right? And that's it. Now we're just going to connect our spark plug leads. We'll cut them to length. We're going to cut them to length and then hook them onto the spark plugs, and then we'll hook up the battery and we should have power. Okay, we are all hooked up. The battery's back on. We have power. See, the red light is on. So now, because this is an anti-clockwise direction setup, we turn the plate anti-clockwise until that light just goes out, and then 2 millimeters beyond that we are good to go. So turn the plate. Lights out. Further 2mm. I think we've just got 2mm in that. And button it up. Now we should have a good healthy spark once we kick it. Okay, now let's see if we've got spark. I am just about to crank it. The ignition's on. Just going to kick it now. Mission accomplished. So it is quite easy to do. I know I've probably rattled on a bit and probably gone into too much explanation if you can do that. Yeah, there you go. And I'll give you a bit of an update when I actually get this thing running. So I'll have to get the tank back on it and a few other bits and pieces back on it and check over a few things before we actually try to fire it up. But until then, there's your ignition.